For everyone who doesn't recognize my voice, I'm Ed, and along with us is Michael. You here?
I'm Mike. How's everybody doing today?
Well, we're just going to make the assumption that they're all right now going, "We're doing great," because well, we've had to mute their microphones,
which is a good idea.
Yeah, well, we'd love to hear from everybody, but you know, 125 people all speaking at once, we're not going to get very far very quickly. So with that, again, welcome everyone. Welcome to, let's see, what do we have this? Decoding the MCSA, tips for taking, and I love the in parentheses here, and passing the Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate exams. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And basically what this all stemmed from is something called the 90-day challenge, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. Something that Michael actually well, I don't know. Did you actually create it, or did you just take the lead on it, or where did this actually come from?
Yeah, it's actually my brainchild. So it started with the 60-day challenge last year, which was almost the impossible challenge unless you were a system center savant. But yeah, it started with the 60-day and then the 90-day this year. So it's kind of my brainchild, and basically Microsoft Learning jumped on board, so did you guys at Train Signal, and we just kind of went from there.
Cool. Well, I know it was a very exciting thing for me and for many others, and maybe for some people that are here with us today, and hopefully going forward, many people into the future. But with that, just kind of a quick introduction. I mean, I know we said hi. Here's kind of the traditional blah, blah, blah that we always have to have here, right? And who I am and who Michael is. The bottom line is, short version, I've been doing this since the Stone Ages, and I have a lot of certification letters behind my name, which means I've taken a lot of tests, which means I guess that makes me qualified to talk about test taking, which is what we're here to do. So, Michael, you want to do a quick wrap-up of who you are?
And I'm kind of in the same sort of boat as Ed. I haven't been a trainer as long, but I have been a system administrator and doing training and consulting for about 15 years. I'm multiple certifiable in Microsoft as well as VMware and the other stuff, and you know, so I guess along with Ed, supposedly that makes me a SME in the realm of certifications. That's subject matter expert for those that are acronym challenged.
Right. I thought you were talking about Smee from Peter Pan that my kids watch all the time. Smee!
No,
so,
no.
Okay, subject matter expert. Cool. All right, well, now that they know a little bit about us, one thing that I'd like to do is I want to throw up a few, I don't want to throw up, don't get me wrong here, I'm feeling great, but I want to throw some questions up on the screen and learn a little bit about our audience. Okay, so anyone who's done a webinar with me knows, let me go ahead and launch this here, I always start off with the same boring poll, and that is, where are you from? I always think that it's really cool when we do these webinars that technology allows us to speak to people from all around the world. So I just want to give everyone else an opportunity to tell me where you're here from. And I always throw the same apology out for the fact that I have South America and Africa and Antarctica all together in one. I can only do 5. So I have to bunch some together, and I wasn't intentionally putting them as being less important. It's just I had to pick. So anyway, oh, and I always have to throw it out there because we always get 1 or 2 people who get offended about Australia versus New Zealand. I'm doing continents, not countries here. So anyway, I can see that everyone is already rocking out the answers there, and we are just about going to close this here because it looks like almost everyone's in. I'll give you a few more seconds, so jump in, let me know where you're from. And I'm going to close this, and let's look at the results. Wow, well, I'll tell you what. We have a huge North American audience. And I will say this is probably about the largest North American audience as far as the percentages of the webinars that I've done. Apparently MCSA is real popular in North America. I do see that we have almost 10% here from Europe, almost 5% from Asia, and 3% from the 3 at the bottom, and nobody from the Australia continent. Either that or the 1 or 2 that are here are so ticked off that I don't put New Zealand that they didn't answer. So welcome, everyone. Love to see you guys from all around the world. The next thing I want to know, and this is a little bit more important to the context of this particular webinar, is I want to know who here has taken any MCSA Windows Server 2012 exam. So I don't want to know about exams in the past. I want to know specifically the 410, 411, and 412, and I'm even going to include in there the 417, which is the upgrade exam. If you have taken any of them, whether you passed, failed, tried it, whatever, took it for free because it was offered at a convention, whatever, who's taking a test? I'm going to give you just a few more moments here because it looks like everyone jumped on it quickly. You're getting the idea. And let's go ahead and close this and take a look at the results. Wow. All right, Michael, look at this. We've got a bunch of newbies here.
Wow, that's surprising.
96% of the people online with us haven't even touched one of these exams. Now, this makes me want to, wish that I had some other questions in here that I don't, because I'd love to further poll the 96% of you and find out why. You just haven't had the time. You've never heard of it before. So on and so forth. But I don't have that in here, so I'm just gonna have to do my best. But wow, welcome everyone, and welcome to the idea of certification in the world of Microsoft, because it's a great thing. As a matter of fact, let me take a quick moment here to add in, and this is true, I know, for not just myself, but for Michael as well. We're both presenting to you right now from our home offices, or we could just simply say our home. And what that means is, I hope this doesn't happen, but you could potentially hear dogs barking in the background, or in my case, children running in who didn't listen to me when I locked the door and said, don't come into my office. What's very cool about it is, well, that's what these kinds of certifications can do for you in your IT career, is get you to a point that, hey, you can work from home. I'm sitting here in I don't know about you, Michael, but I'm in sweatpants, which is crazy because it's really hot outside, but it's cold.
TMI, Ed. TMI.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here in sweats and really enjoying myself. So nice and comfy. So I apologize if there's any extra, kids or dogs, but this is what certification can do for you. So for those of you who have never taken an exam, well, you're on your way, but starting with this webinar. Now, real quick, I don't know that there's much point to this third question, because it's only going to matter for the 4% who answered that they've taken a test. But out of those of you who took the test, anyone here in the room actually already accomplished MCSA Windows Server 2012? I know I could jump in and click the button that says, yes, I've done it. Well, look at that. 2%, 1%. we do have, I don't get to see the exact number of votes when I look at this, and let me go ahead and close this so that everyone can see. We were at 2%, and then a few more people voted no, and we went to 1%, said yes. So that means we have at least one person here in the room, maybe two, who have achieved MCSA, and it wasn't me. I didn't answer that. So I want to reach out to the one or two of you who have done this, and I want to say the Q&A, which is here for you guys to go ahead and ask your questions. It's also a place where I'd love to hear your comments as we're talking through things, things that relate to your experiences, because I think, it's not, Michael and I, we're here doing this because we have experience, but we're not the only experience, and people learn from all experiences. So, as time allows, if you have a comment about your experience, I will try to share that with everybody. Go ahead and plug it into the Q&A, and I'll do it there. Now, with that, let me get rid of this, and let's jump back over to the actual presentation. So, what is the 90 Days to MCSA Challenge? Now, Michael, you had mentioned that this was your brainchild. It stemmed from the 60-day challenge last year. You want to explain a little bit more details, or anything else you want to share about this year's specific challenge?
Absolutely. So this year's specific challenge was kind of based off of what we did last year. Last year we did the Impossible Challenge, which was trying to get the MCSE private cloud in 60 days, which unless you know exactly what you're doing and System Center and were ready to take the exams anyway was just an impossibility. So this year, when the new MCSA came out and Server 2012 in the fall, I was thinking about, what can I do to, try to spur some stuff along and help people, get that MCSA. So I worked with Veronica and, also Ed and the people at Train Signal and came up with basically a 90-day challenge to try to give some people, just a little bit of motivation to try to get that certification. And one of the big things that I want to just throw out about the 90-day challenge is that it's a catchy phrase. 90 days to MCSA, like you read all these books, 24 hours to learn Visual Studio or this sort of stuff. And don't get caught up in the number of days. The challenge is really meant as allowing you to build a framework and having a carrot in front of you. So if you took one exam in 90 days, that's great. If you took all 3 and passed, that's great as well, because we all learn at different paces. So it's really just designed as a way to keep you moving forward, keeping you learning. If you don't take an exam at all, but you learned a lot of great stuff about Windows Server 2012, that's just as good as, taking the time to sit down with the certs. Even though getting your certs and having those, I think, are really good from a marketing standpoint as far as when you're on the looking for a new job, things like that, looking to move your career up. From a knowledge standpoint, as long as you're learning the new stuff that's going on with Server 2012 and private cloud, I think you're doing your career a lot of good.
Yep. I completely agree, and actually we'll address this in a little bit. Based upon the fact that not everybody actually became, who participated became an MCSA in the 90 days, but everything else you get from it is really where the benefit is. I also need to throw a quick little, you mentioned Veronica, who you work with.
Absolutely.
I saw that she tweeted that she's here watching, and she's here to heckle us. I'm just going to go out of my way here to say I'm making sure to leave her microphone muted so that she cannot do that. I only get to heckle her. She doesn't get to heckle me. But she is here with us today. So everyone who's here, you have Veronica from Microsoft Learning. You have her ear as well. So throw your questions in, and I'll get them asked as we move through this through the webinar. So let's jump into a survey that we threw out there. Right? We threw out a survey with a bunch of questions, and we took some of the highlights of that survey and wanted to incorporate that here into the webinar. So it starts off with, where are you at in your IT career? And Michael, you want to kind of jump on and analyze what you're seeing here?
Absolutely. So I apologize. I happen to live right near an airport, so every once in a while you might hear a plane fly over. So no kids, maybe a couple dogs, and a plane every once in a while. And it's the regional airport for the National Guard, so from time to time they will invade our airspace. So
nice.
Back to the survey. So based on the numbers here, it looks like most of the people that we surveyed were mid-level. So we had some entry-level, some senior management, upper management, but most of the people mid-level. So that probably means we were hitting the right audience with this, because the MCSA really isn't, to complete the entire thing, isn't really designed as a entry-level cert your first day on the job. It's really designed, by the time you get to the end of the 3rd exam, you probably should be in the 2 to 4 year range, maybe moving into, you might be entry level if you're real good, but a lot of mid-level people, this is going to be like really the sweet spot for finishing off the MCSA in my opinion. So it's good to see that we're hitting that audience. That absolutely doesn't mean that if you're entry level that you shouldn't, dive in here, because what I can tell you from 410 is pretty foundational. So I think that most entry-level people will probably be able to take 410 and not be extremely challenged by it. when you get to 411, 412, the curve starts to go up a little bit more, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, yeah, and I will tell you, the only caution I throw out there is anytime you hear anybody, whether it be someone like Michael or me or a coworker, a friend, another instructor, whatever, talk about the difficulty level of exams. Remember that the difficulty level is different for each individual, and one person sees one exam as being harder, another person, then they end up taking it, and because their expectation was set a certain way, they thought it was easier, or the other way around. But yes, I agree. The exams are kind of designed in that fashion now to start you off and gradually get a little bit more difficult as you go through. So let's take a look here. The next thing we have is what's been your primary means of studying for the MCSA, and you see that there were three choices we had here. We had computer-based training, which is that's a term that is it's actually a little bit of an older term. It's being worked out of the system. Many people are referring to it more as kind of like online training. It is what we provide here at Train Signal, for instance. We also have our classroom or instructor-led training, which is where a huge chunk of my background comes from, and then self-study. And you'll notice that right now, in today's world, today's economy, and everything else, that tends to be the primary means of study, self-study, and that is it's good and bad. It's good that we have self-study available. In fact, I think it's funny because that even bleeds into some of the computer-based training, because that is like it's kind of guided training. That's another term that's being used, kind of a guided training. So it's great that we have that available. It's very cost-effective, but the problem is that you need to be careful, because there's a lot of people who will put a lot of information out there, and you don't necessarily know at all times where that information is coming from. So make sure that when you are out there, whatever type of training it is, whatever, if you're going to do any kind of self-learning, whether it be books, whether it be online recordings, whether it be anything that's out there at all, make sure that you look at the credentials behind whoever's giving you the material. Microsoft Learning, Microsoft as a whole takes a lot of time to go through and we could say vet the various providers and make sure that they deserve to be able to claim to be an authorized Microsoft provider or training provider. So make sure that you pay attention to that. I would personally like to see the classroom and the instructor-led training be able to pick up a little bit, but there is just that certain reality that especially in today's economy, that there's only so much time and money to go around, and it does tend to be the most expensive. What I do want to tell you is a lot of people will ask me, over the years, they will ask me, what do I use? And there's two answers that I give to that. One is there's nothing better that I use than just the product itself. I know you have to have something to guide you through the product, but actually practicing and working with the product is the #1 thing that I use to study, whether it be just to learn the product or whether it be for certification exams. I will actually get a copy, an evaluation copy, which is, at least up to this point, has always been attainable for free. And if it wasn't free, it was very inexpensive. I remember at one point I think it was $5. But anyway, I'll go ahead and get an evaluation copy of the product. I will get it installed. I will play with it. I will touch it. I will break things. I will fix things, and just do whatever I can do. But the second answer that I give is that I don't have one particular book that I like, one particular company that I like, one particular product that I like. It varies. I tend to kind of play the field a little bit personally and see who I'm clicking with. Okay, and it's not always the same. There are authors, if I use just books as an example, there are authors that I've clicked with on Windows 2000, but then I didn't click with on Windows Server 2003. I moved over to a different author. So I will kind of test the waters. I love going to, whether it be a virtual or an actual physical bookstore, and I will go through some of the samples of the different writings and see just what's clicking. And you know it. I don't know how else to describe it. I know that's kind of a vague answer, but I don't know how to describe it. It's just boom, what clicks with me? And you know that light bulb goes off over your head and you go, I get what this person is saying, and I'm going to go ahead and buy that book, or I'm going to buy that training. So that's what I do when it comes to studying for the MCSA or any other certification training. Michael, is there anything you wanted to add before we move on to the next one?
You know, the only thing I wanted to throw in there is that I'm glad you threw out about the evals, because when I talk to people all the time, I'm like, you got to have hands-on. You got to have that. And this isn't just Microsoft certs, but all certs across the board have really moved to, you can't just read a book and sit a lot of these. You have to be able to, even though you may not be doing like a simulation. Some of the exams have simulations, some are just questions. You need to be able to visualize what you're doing, and the only way to do that is to get hands-on with the product. The other thing that you can often find when they do release all of the products, so my guess is when 2012 R2 and the new version of Windows 8, 8.1 come out in a couple weeks, when we start seeing those, they'll have eval guides, and they'll guide you through a bunch of different scenarios. That is the best way to learn this stuff. Go out, get the white papers from Microsoft. They're huge. Most of them are like 500 or 600. Like the one for System Center last year was huge, but it had step-by-step how to go through the install, do all of these different things, and it gives you it's a great way to have a framework. Myself, I just like to build stuff. I roll up some virtual machines, I start building stuff, installing roles, free-forming, doing that, because I've been doing that for years, and it's what I do for my job. In my classroom, I have to do that, because that's what I do for my students. A lot of people, they have a hard time visualizing scenarios or coming up with those. So going out to those, there's also a number of great bloggers out there. Keith Meyer from Microsoft, he's an evangelist, does a great job with some of his quests as far as getting a lot of material out there. So there's a ton of material out there. It's just a matter of finding what works best for you. And I think, Ed, you hit on that, is that you really need to find what is going to work for you. Is it going to be videos? Is it going to be the written word? Is it going to be hands-on? Is it going to be a combination? It's really you as a learner, you need to understand what your learning style is and find what fits in for you. And oftentimes it's a lot of trial and error.
Cool, cool. Let's move along here to the next topic. And by the way, I want to remind everyone, feel free, if you have a further follow-up question to any of these or a comment, plug them in. We'll try to get to them near the end here. Let's take a look here. The next survey question we had: how long did you study before taking the exams? And this is always a favorite one of mine to see what people are saying. What we have here is, it looks like pretty close, almost a tie. I mean, 3 to 4 months won the survey, so to speak, but it was pretty close between 1 to 2 months or 3 to 4 months. So people are not studying very long. Now, keep in mind that this survey, I believe, was thrown out to the people who were primarily participating in the 90-day challenge. So this question might be just a little bit swayed on that end, because we had a group of people who were all intentionally trying to get these exams done within 90 days, which means, if you think about it, 3 exams in 3 months, that means you're going to do 1 month per exam. And that's great when you are equipped to do that. But you'll notice there's also significant answers ranging from 5 to 6 months, 7 to 8, 9 to 10, even some people who said more than a year. And that's fine. You need to learn your own pace. You need to learn your own means. You need to learn your own needs, right? So in some cases, there's a need. There's a sense of urgency, and you want to be careful with that sense of urgency and really take a close look as to whether it's as urgent as you think it is. I've watched some people get real freaked out when they really didn't have to. But once you learn all that, you can make a decision. And an example I can give you is, way back in the 90s, when I was taking my first certification exams, I can tell you that the very first test I took, I definitely fell into that 1 to 2 month range, meaning I jumped right in, took a test, or I should say took a class, and then studied, and boom, took the test right away. But then from there, I kind of realized I don't need to rush this, and, well, it was that much more difficult for me because I did that. And I have other things that I need to be getting to now, right? So I actually took almost an entire year while taking the next 4 exams. There were 6 total that I needed to take. I took 1 right away. I took almost a year to take the next 4. And then I took another year after that before I finally took that 6th exam and completed my original MCSE. Okay, so and the reason was because I evaluated the difficulty level. I evaluated what I was doing with my life, both personally and professionally. I evaluated my ability to absorb information, because I can tell you there was a point in time where I was taking 2 classes at once. I was trying to learn 2 different aspects of Windows, and I realized that was a mistake. I should have never signed up for 2 classes at once. And I don't mean literally, like I wasn't sitting in 2 rooms at the same time. I was doing night class, and I was doing Mondays and Wednesdays in one class, Tuesdays and Thursdays in the other. Well, I had to tell the Tuesday, Thursday instructor. I told him straight out. I said, I'm going to let you know I'm going to sit in the back of the room, and I'm probably going to be playing solitaire or something like that. And the reason is because I don't want to drop the class, because I might absorb a little something. But the reality is I've overwhelmed myself, and I've taken on way too much, way too fast. And so I'm gonna come back and take this class again in the future. But again, I don't want to drop it, so I'm going to be here. But I don't want you to be offended that I'm playing solitaire while you're teaching. And it all worked out. Matter of fact, that class happened to align with the first test that I ever got a perfect score on. So I guess it worked out that I stayed in that class. But the point is, I don't want anybody to feel pressure, or at least undue pressure, to hurry up and take a test faster than they should have to. You should take the time to do this, do it right, and get the experience. Some of what Michael was just talking about going through the steps and the step-by-steps on the evaluations and stuff like that. So take the time to do that. Don't just read a book and then expect to go take the test. Play with the product. Break the machine. Fix the machine. Learn every aspect of it. And guess what? You're going to have a lot better success when you actually go take those exams. So, Michael, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
You are so right on point, and I don't often say that about you, Ed. But
he doesn't.
the big thing that I tell my students this all the time is that, you can go read a book and go sit a certification, or you can do this and you can get your exam, but when it comes down to it, it's when you're live on the front lines, when you're in that data center or sitting at your office, and you got to fix that problem. And if you can't work with the technology, it doesn't matter how many certifications you have after your name, because eventually it's going to catch up with you that somehow, you didn't learn the stuff along the way. So if it takes you longer to learn it, that's great, because chances are that means that you're going to hold on to that. So that's a big thing. Is just make sure that, I think everybody will know when they're ready to take the exam. And if you fail an exam, use that as a learning experience. Even though you don't get a lot of feedback from the exams, you'll be able to take a lot of things from there, and I think you'll be able to go back and retool how you approach the exam before the next time you want to go sit it.
Cool. I absolutely couldn't agree more. I'm just realizing that I shouldn't have called out Veronica that way, because she's on Twitter heckling us, and I can't shut her up there. So anyway, let's move along through this survey. I know there's a lot of people coming in with a lot of questions about the actuals. If we jump along here to a couple more real quick here, how important is it having real-world experience for successfully passing the exams? You know what, Michael, you and I have been hitting on that already. It's obviously it's very important. But keep in mind, it's real world is what you make it, right? It's real world is in your own network if it has to be. I had a student way back when in my very first class who said, how do I get real-world experience? I can't get a job till I get certified, and I can't get certified till I get that real-world experience. And I said, you know what? Build a network. Go get 2 computers and have them talk to each other. You're networking. Real-world experience is exactly what you make of it. The next question there is how important are practice exams? And I'll tell you what. As you can see, the survey results, people say very important. I definitely say very important. Michael, I'm going to throw it to you in just a second. I was going to tell you, anyone who knows me knows that I could talk to you I could do a whole hour-long webinar on just the practice exam process and how important they are. So I'm going to kind of shut up with that because we don't have another hour. But Michael, is there anything you wanted to quickly add because we want to move through the survey on these 2 points?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Did you pass any of the MCSA exams on the first try? Love this question. This is one of my favorite questions on the survey. 41% actually, which is the largest percentage, did. They passed all 3 on the first try. And I say congratulations to, if any of you are here on with us now, although obviously it's only going to be 1 or 2 because we already learned that. But for those out there that can't hear me, but awesome, way to go. A big chunk of people also said yes, but not all of them, which means they at least one of them they failed, and then almost 20% said no, I didn't pass any on my first try. And here's why it's my favorite question. And my answer to that is that's okay. And I tell people that all the time. Just because you don't pass on the first try does not mean that you are a failure. You may have failed an exam, but you are not a failure. And some of the most successful IT professionals I know have failed and still to this day fail exams here and there. It's those who are willing to get back up, take a look at it, realize, oh, I need to get back and learn some more, and they go do it, and then they stay with it and they pass the exam. Those are the ones I have a ton of respect for. The other quick question, and I'm going to throw it to you, Michael, is how do the MCSA exams compare to other IT certification exams? It looks like, in general, about the same difficulty as what most people are saying. I think I agree with that one. Michael, is there anything you want to add on this one?
I think that's about right. It's really hard to compare apples to apples because so many people do certification tests different ways, but we all know that certification exams are a combination of stuff you should know for the real world, stuff from a marketing standpoint, and stuff that 95% of the people in the world will never deploy. So as long as we keep those things in mind, I think we're probably pretty close there.
Cool, cool. Okay, so here, this was kind of a somewhat open-ended question I think we had out there is, what did you find to be the hardest exam topics? And this is an interesting list because, first of all, if you look at the list in its entirety, am I basically looking at, probably what, about 2/3 of the of the exam objectives? Maybe not that. Maybe it's half. I don't know. I'd have to go look at the exact exam objectives. But, I mean, notice different people were answering different topics, right? I mean, some people think group policy was the hardest. Some people are saying ADFS. The most popular answer was direct access. And I actually laughed when I saw this list. And the reason why is because for me personally, I saw very little on direct access in the pool of questions that I had. And that is random to some extent in the sense that there is a larger pool of questions than what you are asked, meaning we aren't all getting the exact same questions. And I guess that kind of makes the point that I'd like to make here, which is I want everyone to keep in mind you need to be up to speed on all of the exam objectives. And you need to be careful about people who will tell you, oh man, I came back and I had all kinds of really difficult IPv6 questions. And you're thinking, oh man, I don't know anything about IPv6. Isn't that new thing that nobody cares about yet? Right? And I'm kidding around that, by the way. We can't have we don't get to hear the laughter if I was actually in a live room.
Ed Horley is going to get you, Ed.
I know he is. Let's see, is he on the call here? But IPv6, right? A lot of people are thinking that. They're like, oh, I don't know what that is yet. I'm not comfortable with it. And then someone comes back and says, oh, I had these really difficult IPv6 questions. And then you freak out and think, oh, so I'm going to have to bone up on IPv6 before I can even go take the test. Well, the answer is yes, you do, because it is one of the objectives. But you don't need to freak out over it and think that the entire exam is going to be on that one topic. Everybody's exam is different than everyone else's exam. There's a large pool of questions. You get a subset of those questions. Microsoft does not expect that you are going to know every single thing about every single thing. Okay? You only have to get a 700 to pass the exam. You don't have to get a perfect score because they know that everybody doesn't know everything. So, yeah, here we go, hard exam topics, but, I could have taken any objective and said it was a hard exam topic. Michael, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head again. The biggest thing is just make sure you got all the objectives covered. And, Microsoft has done a lot of good work with the newest certifications of really breaking out those objectives. If you go out to all of the forums that have been created and all of the wikis that have been created, there's a lot of great information that really drills down on this stuff. And you just really need to have everything covered because you never know what's going to show up in your pool when you sit the exam.
Absolutely. And I do want to go back to everything that we've been emphasizing all along, which is, when we say learn about, I'll just take the top one on the list here, group policy. You can read this, you can read that, you can watch training, you can read training, you can go to a classroom, you can read the wikis, you can do all these things. If you haven't installed the operating system and actually gone in and played with group policy, then you're not ready. You need to actually touch all of these things, not just, read about them. All right, so here we go. Here's where we're going to get into a little bit of Q&A, and these are actually a little pre-staged. These are some of the most popular questions that we had also through the survey. I do see the pile of questions that are coming in here on the webinar, and we're going to get to as many of those as we can as well. But start off with a question here. Do you have any tips for staying disciplined, which anyone who knows me, I have no discipline, and consistent during the study process? How do you stick to your study schedule? Well, like I said, I'm not a very disciplined person. I'm a massive procrastinator. I mean, people who know me just as a person, I have to work hard to do exactly what this says. And what I find personally is I just need to, it says here, how do you stick to your study schedule? First step is make one. Okay, that's the first step. First step is make one and make it realistic. Okay, you might want to be a little bit on the optimistic side, right? Set high goals, knowing that you might fall just a little bit short, and that's okay. But otherwise, make a schedule and make it realistic, and don't make it, I am going to study for this exam as a whole by, and throw whatever random date you want out there. Make a schedule of, take each of the objectives and say, I'm going to learn about group policy, and I'm going to do this on this day. I'm going to go in and I'm going to learn about direct access, and I'm going to do it on this day. I'm going to learn about IPv6 on this day. Things like that. And I find that if you break it down into smaller chunks, for me anyway, it makes it a little bit easier to stay with it. Michael, do you have tips on what you do?
I'm kind of the same way as, it's kind of funny. Every time I try to do these challenges, it's right at the end of my school semester, and it's right leading up to tech ed, so it's usually this, starts out with big fanfare, and it just kind of, real life and everything just kind of hits. And some of the blog posts that I did for the 90-day challenge that I think a lot of people, if you have this question, you can go check some of those out, and feel free to ping me on Twitter about it. But really, you really need to take a look at, okay, what's my life look like professionally, personally, and you got to make it fit in. And you got to make a commitment to it. Think about it as working out your professional career. And, you know, if you're not going to school, make it like you're going to school. And I know some people, what they have to do is they have to go, you know what, I'm going to treat it like a night class. So what that means is that I'm not going to be in the house for 4 hours on, say, a Monday night, and you go find a coffee shop somewhere, you stay at your office, but you do what you need to do in order so you can't get interrupted. I know the way it is with me, you know, with my son and everything else going on. If I try to do stuff when I'm at home, it's not going to work. So I have to be outside of the home. I often go into my office and, you know, carve out the time to do that. And it's really just, you have to make that personal commitment. You have to understand what that means for your career. And a lot of people don't really think about that as much as they probably should. And, you know, it's really just as simple as, you know, like Nike says, just do it. You just got to do it. You make a schedule, you stick to the schedule, set yourself up some short-term goals, and then also reward yourself. So after a few weeks, after you take an exam, reward yourself. Buy yourself something nice. If there's something that you want, even if you can afford it right now, go, you know what? I'm not going to buy that new Flex or whatever I'm doing until I pass this exam, or at least sit that exam.
I thought you were going to say your new
meet
Ferrari.
Some other goal. It has to be tangible. You have to have some sort of reward there. Otherwise, motivation is going to kind of lack.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually kind of funny because I thought you were going to say, I'm not going to buy myself that new, and you were like, as I said, that new Ferrari. I was like, that's, wow, you really reward yourself. So, no, that's.
I just go to Redmond and I drive Mark Rusinovich's Ferrari.
All right, let's move along to the next question. Here's a big one. There's a lack of training books available, which I consider a real problem. What are your preferred study materials? Well, first of all, I already answered this one earlier on. Michael and I both did, as far as I don't have any one particular. Obviously, being the lead Windows Server instructor for Train Signal, I'm going to say that those are my preferred study materials, or at least they're my recommended study materials. But in all seriousness, this is a problem. You are correct. And it is a problem that Microsoft and Microsoft Learning is aware of. I have been in conversations with them. Again, remember Veronica, you know, she has her ears open here with us today. The problem is everyone's demanding that Microsoft releases new products faster. And so then they do. They come up with new products and they get them out faster. But then everyone's complaining that, well, now you couldn't get training out fast enough. So it's kind of a back and forth. Which do you want? And when I say you know, I'm not talking about any one particular individual, just as a whole, the community. What does the community want? Where's the balance? And it is something that we are all striving to get better at. Can we, you know, finding a way to get products out quickly and be able to get training out equally as quickly. Because, you know, again, remember, it's hard to get training. I can tell you as a trainer, it's hard for me to train you if I haven't had the time to learn it myself. So we're trying to figure out the right opportunities to get the trainers trained on the products as they're coming out so that we can hurry up and get the books, get the training, get everything out there. But other than that, I don't know that there's an answer, you know, to the question right now today. Anything you want to add, Michael, before I move on to the next one?
No.
Okay. All right. This was an interesting one when I saw it. And Michael, I know you and I were kind of discussing it yesterday. The open-ended response questions were where I struggled. Do you have advice on how to approach these? What open-ended response questions was the question that I had? Meaning, what do you mean by this open-ended response? Meaning, if you're referring to the certification exam itself, saying that you had open-ended, to me that sounds like fill in the blank, right? You ask me a question and then I just have to type in my answer. I do know on some of the developer exams that I've heard that there's such a thing. I'm not aware of a true open-ended response question on these exams. The closest thing I've seen, and there are a series, there's a whole range of different types of questions that Microsoft throws in here. They're not all just multiple choice anymore, because we need to make sure that these certifications actually are worth something, right? We can't make it too easy to pass the test. And so there are different types of, order in place, where you click on, I forget the official names, and Veronica's going to smack me for not knowing all these, but, being able to click on the area where you would do something. The closest thing I've had to an open-ended question is when you get a series of questions where it's the same pool of answers, so it's still multiple choice, but you get a huge list to choose from, and then you get a series of questions, all which could have the same answer or different answer, or whatever from that pool. So it's kind of open-ended. So what I would throw out there is I would love to hear from people if you had an actual open-ended question, hear about, is this something new that they're doing? Because I'm going to go back to Microsoft Learning and ask them as well. Michael, did you have anything that you experienced, that you've seen, that's maybe closer to an open-ended question?
No, I was in the same sort of boat. I think the questions you were kind of referring to, those were the sort of stuff that I was seeing. So, yeah, I'd be interested, too, to hear what sort of questions they were kind of referring to there.
Okay. And by the way, we're going to give some follow-up and contact info at the end of this. If you want to ping us on our, through social media and whatever, and throw us this information even beyond this webinar, that would be great. All right. How do you know when you're ready to take the exams? I believe yesterday when we were going through these, I threw out a joke and I said never. Right? That's when I heard that question. How do you know when you're ready to take the exams? Never. And that is the way it feels. You are never ready to take the exam. That's the way you feel. The fact of the matter is that's not the way you should feel. If you're doing what you should be doing, and you should be actually practicing and touching and playing with the with the whatever it is that you're being tested on, as long as you have touched on all of the objectives and you feel that you can actually navigate your way through the operating system and whatnot, through the different technologies, you know what? You're ready. Now, does that mean you're going to pass? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you thought you were ready and you didn't really understand the context of what you were going to be asked. But that's when you should feel ready, is when you've taken the time to look over the objectives and actually, play with and learn about each of them. Michael, you want to expand on that?
I think that, you should feel comfortable. Some people like to hit a certain score on some of the exam prep tools, like questions, things like that. The way it looks for me is I just have a feeling when I know that I'm ready to sit the exam. And quite frankly, I just schedule mine in a date, and I'm going to be ready or not, because I got to schedule 3 to 4 weeks out to get a certification exam. So I don't worry about going in whether I'm ready or not. I just treat it as, okay, if I don't feel like I'm ready, I'm just going to man up. I'm going to go in. I got a game plan, and I know if I'm weak in certain areas. I know test taking, skills that I've built up that I know that I can, be fairly successful. So I don't worry about, do I have to feel ready 100% going in? No, you're never 100%. If you feel comfortable with the material, take the exam. If you don't feel comfortable with it, maybe push it off. I think it's a personal thing.
Cool. Well, and I think this also goes back to something we talked about earlier with the, people who pass on the first try versus people who don't pass on the first try. It's okay to not pass on the first try. And I understand there's, depending on what promotions are going on, there could be a financial investment to going in and failing and then having to pay again. But outside of that, it's okay. You need to, just what you said, Michael, sometimes you just need to finally make that decision and say, you know what, I don't know if I'm ready, but I've done what I'm supposed to do, so I'm just going to go try and see what happens. All right. Of course, my screen's frozen. There we go. Do you have any tips for completing the exams in the allotted time? Michael, I'm going to take this one and answer it really quickly, and that is be prepared. I mean, I've discussed this time and time again with many people, with the only exception being if somebody has an actual, if they're either doing it if they're forced to do it in a language that's not their first language. So reading is, reading the questions takes a while. You can actually ask for extra time if that is the case. But those individuals sometimes do have problems with time. If you have certain, and I happen to be one of these people, if certain learning disorders, in my case it's a reading comprehension disorder, it can take you a little bit longer. But for the most part, the amount of time they give you is ample if you are prepared. Okay? If you have truly done your homework and you went in and you studied and you know what you're talking about, you have plenty of time. Outside of that, there's not much else I can give in the way of a tip. Michael, is there anything you want to add to that?
Nope, I think that's great. Time management.
Right. What is the minimum level of hands-on experience you think is required in order to pass? What is the easiest way to get this experience if you don't face it in your day-to-day job? Well, again, we kind of already addressed this. I don't have a personal answer on the minimum level. Microsoft, I know, posts sometimes 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, so on and so forth. But basically, each person needs to gauge it themselves. It's when you feel comfortable. It's when you feel comfortable that you haven't just touched it, but you understand it. That's my opinion. As far as the easiest way to get this experience, if you don't face it in your day-to-day job, I answered that earlier. In the old days, back in the 90s, I said, what I told my students was, go on eBay and find 2 used computers. It shouldn't have to spend that much money, and get a crossover cable and connect them to each other, and you've got a network. In today's world, you don't even have to do that. You just need to get one okay computer, and you can throw some virtualization on it, and you can virtualize your network. That's how you get the experience. Actually, use Hyper-V or VMware or whatever virtualization technology you want to use. Create the virtual machines and have them talk to each other. Boom. You've got a network. Get some experience. Michael, anything else?
Yeah, I think that's great. We've talked a lot previously about the hands-on experience. Just build up a lab, and with virtualization, you can do a lot of amazing things with some of the different virtual desktop products.
Cool. What I'm going to do here is, because I'm looking at the time and I see that we're getting real close to the end. We have about 5 minutes left, and I do know there's a pool of actual questions that are here, not just the ones that we pre-staged. So a couple things I want to do. Oh, look at that. That was the last question anyway. Real quick, for anybody that does have to leave, I know some people only have this hour and they got to get back to work or whatever it is they have to do. Real quick, you can reach out to me through my Facebook page, okay, which is Train Signal Ed, or you can also reach out to me on Twitter. Although I will tell you, me personally, I'm a Facebook guy, so you can also get me at TrainSignal_Ed. If you want to reach out to Michael, you can get him on Twitter at Michael Bender. He also has his own blog, so I have the URL for that right here. It's allgeek2mike.com. As far as reaching out to Train Signal, who was kind enough to host this today, there's the Train Signal blog. There's their Facebook page, their Twitter page. There's a YouTube page where you'll find all kinds of small little training tidbits and stuff like that, as well as LinkedIn, especially if you're interested in maybe working for Train Signal, maybe if you're a trainer here. So anyway, I wanted to throw that out there, but let me hit a few questions. I will then throw it to Dana to wrap up the webinar, and I'm actually going to stick around, and I think Michael said he can as well. I'm going to stick around probably for an extra 10, 15 minutes and try to hit as many of these questions that you guys have out there as possible. So let me just kind of jump right in, and I have to apologize because I'm going to be filtering through these. There's a lot of comments here, which, by the way, I see every single one of these comments, and I appreciate them all, even if I'm not going to spend the time to say them all out loud. I do have to start off. Todd threw out there that it said, hey, sorry, Ed, but certification has nothing to do with being able to work from home. That goes back to what I said way back at the beginning. You're right. It's the interesting world of being an IT professional, and it's certification that can help you with that, and that's what I was trying to say. Someone's asking if we can expect a lot of Hyper-V in 4.11 and 4.12, and I think that has a lot to do with what we were talking about on any given exam. You know, you could or you could not. It is part of the objective, so it's hard to say.
The short answer is yes.
There you go. And please do that, by the way, Michael. I'm going to be flying through these, so just jump in. I'm not going to call upon you to add on. Just jump in if you have something to say. Oh, there's a question here for Veronica. I wonder if I should read this. The question for Veronica says, when do the 70-640, 642, and 646 exams expire? What's the last date of writing them? And Veronica, you don't need to answer that, although you can jump in and post an answer that I might see when I get down to the bottom. If I'm wrong here, if you go to Microsoft.com/learning, you can actually, and then click on the certification link there, you can actually get all this information and validate that what I'm saying is true, because this could all change. If you are looking to do those exams for the old MCITP, I believe you have till the end of July, so you have about a month. If you are looking to do those exams for the purposes of becoming an MCSA in Windows Server 2008, you have currently, the last time I looked, you have till July 2014. Okay, so you have another year to get those done. But please, please, please go out to Microsoft.com/learning to make sure that I'm giving you the correct answer, because I'm not the source for this. And Veronica, even working for MSL, is not necessarily the source. She's going to go out and check it as well. So please make sure you're doing that on a regular basis. Let's see here. I've read reviews on different books, including Microsoft, where the reviewer says that the material in the books were not covered in the exam. How do you handle this? Okay, so I'm going to actually handle that that answer. I'm going to have addressed this in two different directions. It says the material in the books were not covered on the exam. It sounds like maybe the material in the book goes beyond the exams. There's that side, and that's always great. But then there's the flip side, which is maybe there's stuff on the exam that wasn't covered in the book. My answer to how I handle that is, first of all, I use more than one source when I'm learning. If I'm reading a book, or if I'm watching a course, or if I'm taking a course, I also make sure that I get a reputable practice test in there as well. And this was a question that was asked earlier about the importance of practice tests. If you take something from Kaplan, which is like Transcender or Self-Test, or from MeasureUp, they are certified by Microsoft to be putting out these practice exams, so you know that they're going to be accurate. I find that they help fine-tune your information to what you need to know for the exam. And when you see a question on one of these practice tests, and you're like, that wasn't in the book, that's normal. I mean, I've yet to ever read a book that covered every single possible thing. I mean, the book would have to be huge, beyond anything I'd be interested in reading. My own training that I create at TrainSignal. Okay, so my own courses, I'm the first to admit, yeah, I cover the objectives best I can, and I try to be thorough, but I don't necessarily hit every last point on every last technology. There's going to be questions that may not have been covered in my course. Where the practice tests come in handy is they will help guide you, and then it's time for you to do what? Install Windows Server and actually play with that area of technology. Let's see here. I'm currently an FCP in Windows Client OS. What's the best way to get started with the evaluation copies for training? Is it any different than someone who's not certified with Microsoft? No, I don't think it's different at all. I think getting started is getting started. Yeah, it may be true that if you have experience in a prior operating environment, then that you may have a little bit of a head start. You may get some of the technology because it's not, it may be the same thing, but I think the process is the same. And I know for me, and Michael, I do want to actually call you out to hear what you have to say about this, is I think for every new product, I start as though I've never worked with Microsoft before. I just start from scratch.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I just, I do exactly what I said before. I download the evals, I get one of the evaluation guides, the get started guides, and I just start from the beginning. I install it and just kick the tires and see what's going on in there. I really treat it as this is something brand new, and of course what you've done previously is going to follow you over, but I treat it as something brand new that, hey, I've never seen this before, so let's find out as much as we can about it and play around with it.
Cool, cool. While you were talking, Michael, I conveniently asked you to talk so that I could click on a link here that was shared from Veronica, which you'll notice it is part of the Microsoft.com/learning site. It's a whole big long URL, but I just wanted to point out to answer that question right here, retiring on January 31st, 2014, just like I said, a year from now is the 640, 42, and 46. So I was correct in my answer. But again, I always encourage you to go out and look for yourself to make sure that that has not changed, has not been updated. All right, coming back here, coming back to the questions. There's a comment. Classroom training always most effective, but also the most expensive. I've had people argue that, but I personally agree. I'm sure the folks here at Train Signal would be like, no, Train Signal is the most effective and the most cost effective. But no, I do think there is something that cannot be replaced to having an actual human in the room with you, a skilled trainer in the room with you who can guide you, but it is the most expensive. So it's something you have to weigh out. Comment. It seems that Microsoft puts in more quote-unquote trick questions than other certification tests. Interesting. I don't personally feel that there are trick questions. I think Microsoft is doing their best to keep, they need to keep it challenging. I don't think that they are trick questions. That's kind of a wives' tale kind of thing back from the 90s. There were all these trick questions. People were talking about, oh, they send you down a path thinking it was this, but then you get to the last line of the question and they were asking something else. I don't see it that way, but people will argue that with me. I appreciate the comment. For passing certification, video and notes from Train Signal is enough, or should additional other books and media be used? This person says that he has just started with Train Signal and hasn't taken any tests yet. Ron, that's the name of the person who asked the question. I'm gonna take this one straight on. I've already kind of answered that I never use just one thing. You don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money, so I'm not saying, oh, you spend all the money on Train Signal training and I'm telling you need something else. The good news is that with Train Signal's courses, you do get the transgender practice questions as well. So you are getting 2 resources in one. That was intentional. That was something I worked on with the company to make happen because I felt it was that important. There are also a lot of online resources, wikis that Michael talked about earlier that are free. There are also very inexpensive additional resources if it comes down to it. If you find yourself, maybe there's a certain area that, let's say hypothetically I'm the instructor and we're not clicking, I'm not getting through to you, it might be worth a $20 or $30 book to hear another author present it another way. It does happen. Okay, I'm the first to admit it. I wish I could say that I could teach everybody everything at all times. That's just an impossibility for any instructor. And any instructor who thinks they can, that's who I would be careful of. Now, real quick here, there is something I want to do because I see it's 5 after 1, and I know that some people are already starting to fall off, and they have to get back to work. Dana, I think you're on the line. If you want to wrap this thing up and give it your closing comments, but then again, I'm going to let everyone know that I'm going to stick around for another 10, 15 minutes.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, everyone, that's all the time we have today, although, again, Ed will be around if you want to stick around. Thanks again for attending and for your participation. You still have a chance to win a free month of training, so please consider tweeting one takeaway you've gotten from this webinar with hashtag TrainSignalLive. If you have any comments or feedback, you can also email us at webinars@trainsignal.com. As a reminder, today's webinar was recorded and will be available to view at trainsignal.com/blog/webinars. We will also email you the link in a few days. And remember, as you leave, please fill out the survey. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, Dana. And again, thank you to everyone who was here. I see we have lost some people. We still have quite a few here. I hope you'll stick around. I hope answering these questions is productive for you. But moving along through these, let's see here. I see some specific questions. I'm going to kind of blanket a bunch of these. I see a number of questions that have come through that are specifics about the exams themselves, like how long do you get, how many questions are there on the exam, things like that. Again, I'm going to refer you to Microsoft.com/learning, click on certification, and then actually go to the exam page itself. And anything that is available and Microsoft wants known to the public, it'll be listed. It'll be listed there. If you don't see it listed there, that means you're not supposed to know. Okay? If they don't say how many questions are on the exam, that's intentional. And you have to understand that it's not a matter of trying to just be all secretive or be tricky or anything like that. It's a matter of maintaining the integrity of these exams and the certifications. And being somebody who has done this for a lot of years, and Michael, I know you have as well, we had to live through a period where there was something called the paper MCSE. And there were, it seemed at one point that there was almost more of them than there was of us. And a paper MC was somebody who just figured out how to beat the system. They figured out how to not really learn the material, go pass the exams, and get a certification. So please understand that when Microsoft doesn't tell you everything, it's for a reason, and it's to maintain the integrity. And when these exams are hard, well, that's good. That means that the harder you have to work for it, when you pass, it means you've really earned something that you can be proud of and you can advertise and use it to advance your career. All right, there's a question here that I get asked a lot about whether it's wise to do the MCSA for Windows Server 2008 R2 first, because that's in use at the moment, and then later upgrade to Server 2012. And I get asked that question constantly, and there is, in my opinion, there's no correct answer to that. The way you worded that question, and Joe was the one who asked that question, and Joe, I thank you for asking it in the way you worded it. If you are in an environment that Windows Server 2008 R2 is prominent, well, then I'm going to say probably yes. I would do that certification. What I usually tell people is, which one are you working with more often? Which one are you more comfortable with? That's the one I would go get certified in. Because a lot of people ask me the question like, I've never been certified, where should I start? If you're familiar with Windows Server 2008 and you've got a head start on it, start there. If you haven't touched either of them, I always just say go for the new one. Just jump right into Windows Server 2012. Even though Server 2008 might still be the dominant server operating system in the marketplace, well, you might take another 3 months, 6 months, 12 months before you're done being certified, and by then, well, Server 2012 may have taken over. So that's what I always recommend when people ask me that question. Do I need to have MCSE certification after I get MCSA certified? You don't have to. That is the next place you would go. Once you get MCSA, the next step is to go find a solution, because that's one thing I want to emphasize. MCSA is on a product. We're talking about like Windows Server 2008 versus Windows Server 2012. MCSE is on an overall solution, and it's not product specific. So that is the next level you would go to in your career. But just as no one says you have to get certified, well, no one says you have to. Veronica's going to smack me for that one. We're all saying you have to get certified, but no one's saying you have to go on. And if I misunderstood that question, ask it again. Oh, you know what? Veronica's not going to smack me because I have something here from Veronica, a comment, and it says she's left the webinar. Oh, so I guess we have to talk badly about her now. She did make a comment that she wanted to give back that said, authors are writing as fast as they can. We're keeping up with product releases. So she was pretty much trying to say the same thing I was, which is we're all working hard to try to make sure that we get fast product releases, but at the same time find a way to get the authors to be able to keep up and write the training. All right. I've recently passed 2 of the 3 required exams for the MCITP SA certification. July 31st is the final day to pass that final exam to achieve it. If for some reason I don't pass that by that date, should I retake the 640 exam again, or should I begin on MCSA 2012? My answer to you, Jamal, who asked that question, and anyone else who's listening is I would. Or I would not. I would not go back and retake anything. There's no reason to retake any exams. What I would do is if you've taken 2 of the 3 and you don't get to that 3rd before the MCITP is gone, I would still take the 3rd, because that 3rd still gets you MCSA Windows Server 2008. Complete that process that you already began. Then go ahead and upgrade to Server 2012. All right, let me see what else I can find here. Okay, so here's a good comment from Donald. From an IT support role, I don't want Microsoft to release new updates too quickly. Always updating keeps and keeping current as Peter anyone. So basically, the comment was he's saying as a current IT professional, he doesn't like that Microsoft's releasing new products so quickly. This is some feedback that we're already starting to get. When Microsoft announced at TechEd just last week about the release of Windows Server 2012 R2, there was a lot of buzz about that, saying, wait a minute, didn't 2012 just come out and you're already releasing the next one? So we're going to have to see what happens as the dust settles on that one. But I will make sure to pass along that comment. All right, let's jump down here to a few here at the end. Can you provide us with more detail on free training materials, practice exams? Well, as far as practice exams, I'm not a big fan of the free ones, so be careful on that. Again, you do get some included with TrainSignal and other certain training products and training providers. So outside of that, again, it's hard to give specific detail. What I would do is I would take a look at like TrainSignal's blog, probably Michael Bender's blog, because I never visit Michael Bender's blog. So
shame on you, Ed.
Yeah, I don't. I need to do that. I need to, maybe when he starts posting, I'll start getting there. No, all right.
I got some really cool stuff on May the 4th.
That's right. So these blogs, once you start being familiar with trainers' blogs, you'll find that they tend to refer you to a lot of this free material and really cool articles that are out there. All right, I'm going to take a few more, and then we got to wrap this thing up. I'm seeing a lot of repeats, so that's why I apologize as I'm reading through here. All right, here's a good one. Somebody asked, has the transcender questions improved? For 2008, they were worse than useless. And that is the exact wording of the person who asked the question. His name is Jason. You know what? I read it using your exact wording, even though I don't agree. I used Transcender, actually, for Windows Server 2008. I didn't find them useless at all. But you're not alone in your thoughts. I personally think MeasureUp is useless for me, even though they are certified by Microsoft as being, one of their key practice test providers. It kind of goes back to what I said about choosing, an author that you click with. You need to choose a product that makes sense to you the way they're assisting you. What I tell people is, regardless of what you're using, whether it's MeasureUp or Self-Test or Transcender, I don't care who it is, if you're using it properly, meaning you're not just trying to see what score you get on a practice test and say, woo, I'm ready, but actually use it as a supplement to your learning. Use it so that they guide you towards the things you need to go out there and learn more about. You should be successful. Okay, so that's something I want to emphasize with that when it comes to opinions on certain practice test companies, because you'll hear people say companies are great and not great. I see a lot of people threw a lot of thank yous out there before they left the room. So, well, some of you are still in the room. Thank you is what I want to answer that for being here. And for those that left, I'll just say you're welcome. I'm seeing some repeats coming through. I don't know if it's a Yeah, I'm not sure that I apologize if there's anybody's question that came through and I'm not seeing it. I don't know if it's a technological thing, but there's a lot of the same questions that just started piping through my Q&A here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. I will tell you that I really want to emphasize, and I'm going to put it back up on the screen. If you want to get a question asked that we did not answer here today, reach out to me, reach out to Michael, reach out to Train Signal, which I'll leave those up here for just a moment, but it's basically your favorite social media / Train Signal, or at Train Signal. But reach out to one of the two of us, ask the question. Obviously, you know, we can only get to so many questions so fast. There's, you know, when there's thousands and thousands of people asking them. But I do my best to not ignore anybody. Okay, it may take me a little while to get back to you, but I don't ignore you. And if I ever have ignored you, ask it again. Be a pest. I'm fine with that. You'll find that I'll usually be the one to apologize to you that you had to ask me the same question twice. Michael, is there anything else you'd like to throw in before we close shop here today?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a big thank you. Thanks for taking your time, because I know that we're all busy, and depending on your time zone, it might be your lunch hour, it might not be your lunch hour. So just want you to know that, you know, I'll speak for Ed on this, that I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come out and listen to us. And absolutely, you know, ping me on Twitter if you've got questions that you need answers to. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to help you find the answer. And a good place to really start is the 90 days to MCSA.com link that's up there. That's going to take you to basically a jump page out at Microsoft Learning, and they have a ton of information out there, videos, links to stuff in TechNet. They've broken all of the objectives down by pieces. So if you look at the resource wikis, a lot of very smart people have spent a lot of time, and Microsoft really took the feedback that a lot of us gave them about not having good resources out there. There's a ton of information out there, so start there. I can tell you that's probably the best place for you to find if you're looking for free information and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and while you were saying that, I don't know if you noticed, Michael, I actually clicked on the link so people could see what the page looked like.
I did. That was good driving, Ed.
Yeah, I just wanted everyone to see when they want to make sure they're in the right place, and wanted to comment that part of what you saw on that page was also some real quick exam prep videos that Cynthia and I put together for the MCSA that we've been talking about here today, and Christopher Harrison and Susan Eibach put together for the sequel MCSA. So with that, yeah, thanks everyone. I see that we still have more than half of the attendees hanging with us. Wish I could spend another hour with you. Look forward to the next time, and you know, I guess thank you and good night.
Have a good one. Thanks.